What's up everybody, it's your boy K. Today we'll be making some emotional West Coast beats for rappers like Mozzy. Let's get it, baby! Yo, real quick, it's not even like a West Coast type of beat, it's just something that you hear in Mozzy's type of rap. Something that's hella jazzy, soulful, emotional, you know what I'm saying? All that good shit. Something that brings out all the emotion out of you feel me? That type of rap. So, without further ado, let's get into it, bro. So the first thing I added was some piano. I'm using the addictive keys. Boom. I'm using this preset called Audience, and I also added a little bit of effect so the pedal noise is up a little bit to create a little more realistic feel to the sound. And I also changed the microphone to Tube M269 to have more audience ambient type of feel. Or maybe I didn't change it because it's called the ambience piano. Audience piano. Anyway, so without any effects, the piano sounds like this. Tough. So basically what I did for the chord progression was starting off with 7th chords. Boom, B minor 7th. Boom, C sharp minor 7th. And boom, D major 7th. Anything that's classic, jazzy, soulful, and nostalgic, they all have 7th chords for some reasons. I don't know, but they kind of create that jazzy, soulful type of feel. So I started off with that. And for the higher notes over here, I basically kind of played around with the piano. Sometimes you gotta finger the shit out of the bitch to figure out what kind of noise it'll make. You know what I'm saying? That was a good analogy. But yeah, sometimes you just gotta do it because Logic don't really get the ghost notes feature like FL does. So you have to play around with the piano to figure out what goes well with the chord progression. But you can pretty much follow the same notes, and I just basically went an octave high. Boom. And I added some Studio Rack, which is a plugin from Waves. A lot of people use this plugin for vocals, but they also have a lot of presets for instruments, and I'm using this preset called the piano. Super creative, I know. But I added some drive and room mic and reverb, and there's a little bit of harmonics going on. And with the effects, it sounds like this. Yeah, there's a lot more drive and reverb to it. And I also added some EQ, boom, just to cut the low end so you wouldn't crash with the bass and drums and all of that. And then I moved on to pads. I like to add pads on top of piano to layer the sound because there's a lot of pauses in piano chord progression. And to fill them up, I like to add pads to fill them up. And I like to add pads to do his thing. You feel me? I'm repeating myself. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing right now. So I added this pad called Angelic Analog from Alchemy, which is Logic stock plugin. Don't sleep on the stock plugin, and you can use whatever stock plugin that you have, but this is the pads. And I added some EQ just to cut off the low end so that it wouldn't crash with drums and bass and all of that. And basically what I did for boom, the chord progression, was I used the same chord progression from the piano, but I inverted these 4 notes, the bass notes, up an octave, so that it creates a different feel. But it's like doing a layering, you feel me? So with the effects and everything like that, it sounds like this. And the next thing I added was some saxophone. Don't even worry about the icon, to be honest, and the name of the instrument, because originally I went with Logic stock plugin for guitar, but then I changed my mind because a lot of old school songs have saxophones playing in the background, so I just basically wanted to mimic that. And this is the plugin I used from Contact, which is called Alto Saxophone, and it sounds like this without any effects. Weak as fuck. I know, it's pretty horrible the way it is. It sounds like a toy saxophone. So I added some effects. Boom, the first thing I added was some pedals. So there's a little bit of drive and flanger going on over here, and I also added some amp. Boom, I'm basically treating this saxophone like it was a guitar. You feel me? Like sometimes you gotta let the guitar go through amp and pedal boards and all of that to create a little distortion and also some distant feeling because you can add a reverb and whatnot, and that's what I did. And I also added Space Designer to add a little more reverb. This bitch is wet as fuck, dude. There's so much reverb going on. This bitch is moist. But sometimes you gotta let it do its thing, you feel me? And then I added some EQ just to cut off the low end again so that it wouldn't crash with drums and bass and all of that. And here's a technique that I use, which is drowning your sound or an instrument. I don't know what it's called, but somebody said it on YouTube and I thought it was a good terminology for me to use. So drowning your sound basically means to cut off the high end so much to the point where you don't hear the higher frequency. And when you do that, you kind of make the sound like it's coming from afar. Like you're hearing it, but it's coming from a distance. You feel me? Like, I don't know what it is, but it just basically does that. So without any EQ, it basically sounds like this. It sounds a lot better than the original instrument, but it's really in your face and I didn't really like that. And when you cut off the high end, it really makes it sound like the sound is coming from afar. You feel me? That's cold, homie. That's hella cold. And then I added some strings. I'm using Contact again. I'm using this plugin called the Violin Ensemble. And without any effects, it sounds like this. It sounds good, but again, it's in your face and I didn't like that. So I added some effects again. Basically what I did was the same thing. I'm using Logic EQ, which is called a low pass filter. Basically an EQ, but you can't really cut off the low end. This is only for the higher frequency. And I cut off the high end and I also added some EQ because there was a little frequency that I didn't like in the instrument. And boom, with all these effects, it sounds like this. Again, it's coming from afar. I like that ambience to give it a little more soulful, classic, old school type of feel. And then I added some bass. I'm using Logic Stuck plugin, which is a classic bass plugin. It's like a VST, but it has like a pretty legit old school classic bass sound. And I didn't add any effects on this. Again, I cut the low end just so that it wouldn't crash with the drums. And without any effects, it sounds like this. Basically following the same bass notes from the chord progression, nothing too crazy, you know, the classic bass trick, you feel me? So that's what I did for the loop, and just the loop only, it sounds like this. Yeah, that's cool, that's cool. The only thing that's not super vintage about this loop is the pass, but other than that, all these instruments that you hear in this loop are something that you hear from the 70s and 80s music, you feel me? So I just wanted to mimic that old school sound. And then you gotta add some drums. So I added some kicks from Rio's drum kit. And real quick, shout out to Rio, man. His drum kit go crazy. I've been using all his kicks and 808s and all of that in all of my fucking tracks, bro. And this kick is no exception. So let's give it a listen. Knocking. Like, I'm not lying when I say his drum kits go crazy, bruh. And that's the kick, and I also added some claps. And then I add some hi-hats. You know the rest. Not too crazy. I just really wanted to have these drums kept simple just cause it's a simple, emotional West Coast melody. You feel me? And now, this is the beat. You see, that's something super simple, but it works. It works. Sometimes you gotta keep it hella simple, you know what I mean? Anything that's emotional, man, you wanna leave a lot of room for the rappers to rap on. And to know if the beat actually goes well with Mozzy's vocal, I added the actual Mozzy's vocal on top of my beat. So I'm pretty sure you have this in FL too, but Logic Update added this stem splitter feature, so you can split vocals, drums, bass from the instrument. And the other is basically the instrument. So I already extracted the vocal from Mozzy's song Red Nose Bully, and bruh, with the vocal, it sounds like this.
Indian Filipino joint, look at my bitch. Satin purple on 4G's, nigga, look at the whip. Wish I could post it on the gram so you could look at the crib. Hey, was sleeping on no park, I put the hood in the mix. In the A like with a drink, I need a jug on the brick. Niggas posting gangsta shit, still ain't slither for his. Use a sock from out the dirty clothes to fill up.
Bruh. See, it works. It works. And that's the thing, if you really want to figure out if the rapper's vocal goes well with your own track, you gotta put the rapper's vocal on your own track, you feel me? So, that's how you make an emotional West Coast beat for Mozzy. Yee! If you find this video helpful, make sure you hit the like button, comment on the video, subscribe to the channel, all that good shit, and we out. Peace.